Hello, Ricardo. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here with actually some colleagues like Eleanor and João Santos. A warm welcome to everybody. We have just been informed that Nigel won't join us due to health problems. We do hope that he managed to recover quite quickly and that it's not serious. Of course, that will give us a little bit more time for you to intervene, but please, I would like you to keep focused and so we can have a lively discussion. So we can now see João. Apparently he had some problems in connecting, but he is now online. Olá, João.
Olá, boa tarde.
Boa tarde. Good afternoon. You know, Portuguese normally tend to speak, I forget that others don't understand sometimes the Portuguese. It's nice to see you. We are all acquainted with the project, so no need to dwell a lot on it. You have received as well a couple of questions around which you were asked to structure your intervention. So I think I can now immediately present the speakers, and then we can start our intervention as well. So we have today Natalia Bayona from the Director of the Innovation, Education and Investment Department at the United Nations World Tourism Organization. We have Eleonora Brambila, Project Officer from the Executive Agent of Culture and Education of the Commission. We have João Santos, Senior Expert at the European Commission, DG Employment, if I'm not mistaken. And unfortunately, Nigel Morgan won't be able to join us, as I had already said. Well, Natalia has sent us a video because she cannot attend directly. So I would ask now Ricardo to pass the video with Natalia's intervention. Ricardo, it's on to you now.
Hi, my name is Natalia Bayona and I am the Director of Innovation, Education and Investments at the UN World Tourism Organization. It's my pleasure to be here with you and to be part of this amazing panel in order to empower youth and children. I have to say that, of course, tourism is the top employer in the world when it comes to youth and women. 10% of the jobs in the world are thanks to the tourism sector. Nonetheless, during the pandemic, 100 million jobs are under risk. 1.5 billion kids are not going to school. So, of course, there is a moment or a tipping point where we need to open our eyes and to foster education and to lead by example. How can we do this? Of course, first of all, we need to join efforts, public and private sector, in order to create amazing platforms, digital platforms, to give access to all the kids, to all the young talented minds, in order to create a multidisciplinary place where kids can enjoy new skills, technological skills, tourism skills, hard and soft skills, and of course, to learn how to take care of the environment, of their country, of their territory. Remember that 80% of youth living in developing countries live in rural areas. So if we want to empower the future leaders of this sector, we need to start once again by digital education. It's the only way to scale up the way people are educated. That's why we created inside the Tourism Online Academy, that is our online platform, we created the specialized courses. You can go there for free and you can access to the content made by top universities and top academic institutions from all around the world in order to help people that normally speaking would not access to top and high level universities to at least to have a top certificate and to begin their journey in the tourism sector. On the other side, we decided to launch the Students' League. the first competition focused on youth and kids in order to help and to promote a more sustainable, innovative and resilient tourism sector. Today, all of you can apply. You just have to go to our UNWTO website and pitch your project or give a solution in terms of plastic initiative or a sustainability initiative. Top winners can go to the General Assembly to present their solution in front of ministers of tourism from all around the world. So then when we speak about education as well, digitalization is crucial, not only because it helps to scale up solutions, but also because it helps to modernize the way business are creating new solutions or new services. That's why during our next General Assembly, we will launch the Tourism for Tomorrow program that will be a specialized program focused on bringing digital skills to SMEs in order to help them to improve their tourist experiences and to improve their digital services. We are working this with Cisco Academy, with Google, with Facebook, with MasterCard, among others. So when I talk about education, of course, everything related about bringing high schools and engaging them with tourism is crucial. That's why we support as well countries that are developing different specialized programs for youth and kids. In my hometown, Colombia, we have a spectacular program that is powered by the UNWTO that is called Schools That Are Friends to the Tourism Sector. So that's another idea. So I challenge you to tell your teachers that you want different classes, tourism classes, hospitality classes, how to be a good leader in this sector, to go and to visit new places, to visit the museums, to support tourism by going to the different hotspots that you normally have in your territories, in your cities, in your areas, because in our hands, in the hands of youth and kids, is the power to create a solution in order to build a more conscious tourism, a tourism full of technologies, but technologies for good, to help others and to help to take better decisions. Sustainability in order to help to preserve our environment. Ethics in order to use data and to use these services to serve the community. To have a very inclusive tourism in order to include minorities, indigenous, kids, etc. We need to change the way we were selling tourism. We need to promote a better tourism. We need to include all of you, to include the kids, to have a voice in order to lead by example. But this only can be possible if we work as a team, if we create community, and of course, if we start since the beginning, since you are in primary school, being aware about what are the benefits of working in tourism and what are the benefits of having different cultures going in and out from a city until you are finalizing your high school and then you're going to bachelor's and then you're doing a master's. So we need to have a lifelong learning state of mind to understand that unlearning, learning and relearning is a process and that it's not the future, it's the present and it's the way we are educated today, because with all the bunch of information that we have in every single newspaper, social media, television, soap operas, etc., there's a lot to learn. I have to say that I learn every day of course, of my team, of the newspapers, of everything that I read, of giving speeches, etc. Because when you have innovation in your state of mind and when you think that you're here to learn, keep learning, unlearning, relearning, and that taking risks in order to improve on your career is part of your life, it's amazing. So take the risk of trying to work in the tourism sector. Try to go to different rural destinations where you normally speaking, you don't go. Ask your parents or your family or your friends to do different things for good, to work with the community, and of course, to bring youth and to bring your energy into the most human economic sector. I think that today I have thousands of ambassadors of the tourism sector. Each of you will become sooner or later an ambassador of your community, of your neighborhood. But what I would like to see is that you are preserving your environment and that you are promoting tourism as part of the DNA of everything that you do. Thanks a lot.
Ana Maria, peço desculpa, está sem som.
Sim, já estou.
Agora sim.
Ótimo. I was saying that was quite inspiring, the intervention by Natalia, and I am sure that Eleonora is quite happy with some of the wording used, like lifelong learning, and relearning, some kind of terminology that the agency is very fond of, and the GIAC as well. So I now give the floor immediately to Eleonora for her intervention. Thank you very much, Eleonora. The micro is yours.
Thank you, Anna. First of all, I would like to say that it's a real pleasure for me to be here today at Income Tourism Final Conference to discuss with you the future of higher education in tourism, and in particular discuss the challenges and the advantages of cooperative learning. My name is Eleonora Cavallero. I work for the European Education and Culture Executive Agency, or EACEA for short. This executive agency manages some EU funding programs on behalf of the European Commission. I work for Erasmus+, the EU program aimed at supporting education, training, youth, sport, the program that is co-funding the project that has brought us together today, Income Tourism. More specifically, I work for Knowledge Alliances, and I am the project officer who is following Income Tourism at the agency. Now, I'm not an expert in the tourism industry, so in my input, I will focus on the role of knowledge alliances and their impact on high relevant topics, such as the future of higher education in tourism, and how will we reinvent tourism in such a challenging time. Well, to give a more detailed insight on the action Knowledge Alliances. Knowledge Alliances is an action that since 2014 contribute to strengthening Europe's innovation capacity and fostering innovation in higher education, business, and the broader socioeconomic environment. Income tourism is a part of the Erasmus+ Knowledge Alliances. Now, Knowledge Alliances aims at developing new, innovative, multidisciplinary approaches to teaching and learning, developing entrepreneurial mindset and skills, and stimulating a flow and exchange of knowledge between higher education and enterprises. We consider a knowledge alliance to be fully successful when they create new learning opportunities, results and solutions that are transferable and accessible to a broader audience, and they manage to ensure the persistence of the partnership and the activities beyond the life of the project. Now, as a project officer, Income tourism, I can say that income tourism has so far created a very fruitful synergy between higher education institutions and tourism businesses. And as you might have already discussed in this final conference, it has produced very interesting outcomes. So we are talking about this cooperative learning model linked to the development of soft skills and based on a cooperative learning process that brings together higher education institutions as businesses. And it has created a variety, it is creating a variety of dissemination events that raise awareness and reach stakeholders across the Europe to tackle very relevant issues for the industry, the tourism industry. We're talking about the cooperation between industry and university, the employability, how to reinvent the future of tourism. As the outbreak of the pandemic has hit the tourism industry the hardest, income tourism is contributing to finding possible responses to some of the most pressing questions. How can we overcome the challenges that the tourism industry is facing in this unprecedented time? And how can the tourist industry and the academia work together to find appropriate solution? As I said before, I'm not an expert in the tourism industry. However, as a project officer, I can say that so far the project has reached many goals, and then now the biggest challenge is to prove that this project can go beyond the lifetime and beyond the organization involved in the alliances, because this way we can transform, you can transform the project in a virtuous process. So to keep contributing to addressing the challenges that the tourism industry is currently facing. So thank you very much. And I wish you all a great continuation of this event. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Anna. It was great to listen to you and to remind some of the good times with education and culture. And now, just because you mentioned some quite interesting issues, like, you know, what tourism is facing now, what we can do because of all changes, I'm just going to share a small slide exactly about that. Is it being shared or? Okay, share screen. Yeah. Can you see the slide? Okay. I am sorry, I think, oh. Can you see now the slide?
Yes, we can, Ana Maria.
Okay, good. So just to add a little bit more thing what Eleonora just said, it comes from the EU strategy for sustainable tourism that was adopted by the European Parliament on last March on establishing a EU strategy for sustainable tourism. You have here some of the main guidelines or strong messages from the Parliament. So rebuild, refocus, strengthen, and rethink. I think Eleonora did mention some of the actions that can be put here. So maybe the next interventions could as well say something about this strategy, the new strategy for sustainable tourism. And now, once again, thank you very much, Eleonora. I'll give the floor to João for the next intervention. João, the microphone is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ana Maria, and good afternoon to everyone. My name is João Santos. I'm a senior expert at the European Commission, DG Employment, in the unit dealing with vocational education and training. So I'm not an expert in higher education, but it's quite good to see that higher education is adopting approaches and mechanisms that we've been using in vocational training since ever, because the work placement and the cooperative learning between vocational centers and companies is at the core of the vocational system. In fact, if you look at our recent policy initiatives in the area of VET, you will see that work-based learning is a key element. Just to mention that, in the council recommendation that was adopted late last year in November, one of the targets we have is that at least 60% of all learners in vocational education and training should have a work-based experience during their qualification period. So 60% of all VET learners, at least 60% of all VET learners should have experiential learning of working in a company, in an employer. And if we look at the dual system, so the countries that are characterized by dual system, there it's even more, because we also have another council recommendation on quality and effective apprenticeships that says that of the learners in apprenticeship systems, that at least 50% of their time, so all of them, of course, have to have work-based experience, but of their qualification, at least 50% of the time should be on experience learning, so working in a company. This requires, of course, if you have targets of this type, that the business education partnerships is a key element of everything we do in education. And I think this is important, not only because it provides the learner with hands-on experience of what is real working, because I mean, if you take the tourism sector in particular, one thing is sitting in a classroom and understanding all the theory about how customer relation works. Another thing is being, interacting with tourists, with people that are using the tourism services, and having to understand their concerns, their needs, the language they talk. So the kind of experiential learning that the vocational system has been providing, I would say, is essential if we want to equip people with the skills to do the transition from the education system to the labor market. And I'm happy to see that this project in particular is focusing on implementing this at the higher education level. And I think it's really important, not only because of this experiential issue, but also because of the changes that are coming up. I mean, if you look at the big challenges we have with the green and digital transition, this means that, the market, the way people behave, the way they are, interacting as consumers, the way they interact also with digital skills, with digital opportunities for booking whatever, be it hotel, travel, whatever, that these kind of big challenges that we have require that the education system really looks up to businesses, tries to interact with businesses, and it is essential that businesses also understand that due to the rapid pace of change, it is impossible for the education system to keep up with the fast demand for updating skills. This means not only updating the curricula, which has to be updated on a continuous basis because of the change that is happening, but also understanding in what direction it should be done. And as I was saying, a few decades ago, whenever you had to rethink the curricula of any qualification, be it higher education, be it VET, you'd have, I would say, a decade or so. So if there was one big change happening, you'd set up a working group, you'd bring experts together from various sides, you'd set up a new curricula, you'd set up a new qualification, new books, whatever had to be done, but you had time to do it. So the advance of the economy on society was at a pace that the education system in itself could sort of adapt. Now, this is no longer possible. It is no longer possible for the education sector, for the teachers, to remain in their cluster and predict where the future market will go. And when I'm talking about market, I'm talking not only about, you know, the economy itself, but also customer expectations, what they want, the way they interact, the way they see themselves as citizens contributing to a green Europe and so on. So, and for this to happen, it has to happen in close cooperation between the education system and businesses throughout Europe. And therefore, this requires, as I was saying, that the business understand that the education system needs them to understand what our future skill needs, to understand in what direction the market is going, in particular tourism sector, and also to help that the businesses throughout Europe help the education system to update the curricula so that people are going out of the education system with the skills that are needed for their competitiveness. And I would say that the tourism sector is in particular the focus of what we are trying to do in Europe. If you see what came out in the updated industrial strategy earlier this month, the tourism sector is one of the 14 ecosystems that have been identified. And there you'll see there's a particular section on what can be the challenges for the tourism sector and what we are doing in Europe in order to contribute to help it recover from the crisis. As you know, of all the sectors that were affected by COVID, I would say that the tourism sector is probably the one that was most affected of all. In fact, this document by my colleagues of DG GROW in the Commission show very clearly that the tourism sector was the most affected, and we don't know how the recovery will be, when it will take place. Some people predict it will be a fast recovery, but I doubt it. And at the same time, even if there is a quick recovery, I think that the market itself will change significantly, precisely because of the digital transition, the green transition, the concern of people for sustainable tourism. And this requires that not only the young people that are in the education system, be it vocational training or higher education, that are preparing to go into the sector, they need a different kind of skill set that was maybe not needed before the COVID crisis, but also what I would say is for upskilling and reskilling. I think the tourism sector, as I say, I'm not an expert in the tourism sector, but it has more than 20 million people working in Europe. And I understood that as a result of the crisis, almost 11 million of these had, you know, changes in the way they were working, either because they were unemployed or because they are in temporary employment schemes. So there will be a tremendous change coming up in the tourism sector. Many people have possibly abandoned the sector during this COVID crisis. And we have to make sure that the tourism sector is attractive to people, adults, be it adults or young people, to bring them back, and they have to be qualified people. It's not just people that don't know how to do anything else that go in the tourism sector, because then forget about quality in tourism, it will not be sustainable. So we have to find ways of, as I was saying, not only thinking at the formal education system, but everything has to do with the education system for adults, for upskilling and reskilling, not only those that were in the tourism sector and will continue, but also the new entrants that will have to support the tourism sector in order to regain the prominence it had before. And of course, the tourism sector, I would say, also has many other issues not directly related to skills, but you know, the seasonality, which is a very big issue. I'm from, well, I'm not from, but I spend most of my time when holidays in the Algarve, in sunny Portugal, a beautiful place. I would recommend you go there. But what I'm saying is that, you know, we'll have to make sure that we are capable of having quality and sustainable tourism. And this issue of upskilling and reskilling of adults is, in fact, a very, very big concern. I would possibly leave it here. So first of all, recognize the very positive movement of seeing in higher education you somehow replicating what we've been doing in VET for many, many years, which is put the business education partnerships at the core of ensuring that we are providing people with the skills they need for the quality in the education system.
Thank you very much.
I will leave it there, Ana Maria. Then if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yes, it definitely will be some questions. Well, thank you very much. Excellent intervention. And really, you are right. That's the kind of talk we've been talking for quite a while, especially this business university dialogue that has been quite a difficult one. Let's hope that now the good side of the pandemic is that, we have now really realized that we have to be all together. We have to have an holistic approach to all these things. I profit from the João's intervention to do another screen another screen sharing, if possible, of just a couple of exactly that goes on the same way of what João just said. We are in a fast-changing working environment. We are in a knowledge-based economy. We are in a select pace of technical development. So, what should be the focus of our education systems? And I think that's a nice question. And I'm now hoping that Eleonora and João, because Nigel is not present and I don't think Natalia is listening to us. Would you have something to say on this?
You can start, João.
Okay, so I think I've practically spoken about this. There is a fast-changing market, and businesses have to understand that ensuring that people have the skills they need to make their businesses competitive is not a exclusive responsibility of the education and training sector, but they have part to play in it. If they want to ensure, and quite often companies complain that the education system is not providing them with the people that they need for their competitiveness. So they complain that, the education system is not providing us. These people come out of schools and universities, they don't have the skills that we need. But then I think, the only solution for that is not expect the system to just reinvent itself and find its own solutions, but that businesses have to understand that the education system, they are also part of the education system, that they have to take a part in it. They have to provide apprenticeship opportunities. They've got to provide internship opportunities. They have to provide teachers and trainers that are in vet schools or in universities with the opportunity to go to the business, to understand how the skills they are providing to the learners are then used in a real work context. And this can only be done with us. And I think that the Erasmus program, not only, but if you look at what we're doing at the European Social Fund, but I would say Erasmus per excellence maybe is providing exactly that. We have, beyond the knowledge alliances that this income project benefits from, there are many other Erasmus instruments we have. We have the sectoral blueprints, we have the centers of vocational excellence, we'll have new mechanisms in the new Erasmus program also to finance this kind of business education partnerships. And I would suggest, because it's a thing that I'm working on particularly now, the centers of vocational excellence, that we are providing the next 7 years with the support of Erasmus Plus, up to 400 million euros of support to establish 100 platforms of centers of vocational excellence throughout Europe, to make sure precisely this that we are talking about, that the vocational system is understanding in each region what are the objectives, the strategic development objectives of that region, and that the vocational system is not only in touch with what are those needs, but is then working very closely with the companies, with the public employment services, with regional authorities, with universities as well. So that system working with universities, understanding what are the companies' needs in terms of skills, and ensuring that it is providing, as I said, not only the young people with those skills, but working with public employment services. Because of the green and digital transitions, there will be millions of Europeans that will have to change the jobs they are doing, or at least will suffer a big change in terms of content of the activities they are doing. And of course, those that are unemployed, those that are registered in public employment service, it's very important that companies that need qualified people, that vocational centers, that universities that need to provide people with skills work together, see those people that are going to be affected by the digital and the green transitions, people that, for example, let me take a small, obvious example, the mining sector, which is obviously going to be tremendously affected. We cannot forget about these people. We've got to give them alternatives. One possibility is requalifying these people, you know, working very closely with the public employment services, regional development authorities, education and training providers, and see how we can provide upskilling and reskilling for these adults so that they can, for example, support the kind of quality tourism that we'd like to have in the future. So these kind of initiatives, I think at the European level, we are doing not only policy initiatives, like I mentioned, the updated industrial strategy, but there's been many other, as you know, many other documents at the European level, be it by the Parliament or the Commission, on supporting the tourism sector and other industrial sectors as well. But, you know, we are not only talking about policy orientation, but we're also talking about financial mechanisms. The Recovery and Resilience Facility, which provides billions of euros for countries to make good use of it and to take this opportunity of change, because obviously COVID had a tremendous impact, in particular on tourism, and take this as an opportunity to support sustainable change and not see it as a disaster that happened to us and that there's nothing that we can do about it. I mean, I don't believe that kind of negative attitude can take us anywhere, but of course it requires that we do something, that we change the way we were doing things before, that we really ensure that, as I said, businesses understand that skills provision is not only a competence of the universities and vocational systems, but they also have a role to play. Of course, they don't have to necessarily train people, but they've got to work with the education and training system if they want to ensure that they have people with the right skills.
Thank you very much. Well, yes, and now Leonora.
Yes, I fully agree with this perspective. The pandemic should allow us to transform this crisis, it's a global crisis, in opportunities, and to be transformed in a wide spectrum action. Here, obviously, from our perspective, we focus on the relationship between businesses and higher education and the broader socioeconomic environment. And I believe that the income tourism that has brought us together today is a great example of how we can create a change in our mindset and in the way we perceive the relationship between those that are normally perceived as silos, so the higher education institution and the tourism businesses. So I totally embrace what my colleagues said before, and I believe that a deep shift in our mindset has to be embraced in order to transform the pandemic an opportunity to have a more sustainable tourism, and that can attract the workforce. So I fully agree with your perspective.
Thank you very much, and I thank you very much, João. Just to be a little bit provocative, you've just said that the business and university world should be together. Let's come now a little bit down. What is DG EAC and DG Employment doing together when it comes to this, to building up, you know, yeah, this education and skills and employment?
Yeah, I know that sometimes there's the idea from the outside that, you know, in the Commission we are islands and that EAC and employment don't talk together. It's completely false. I can tell you that, you know, of course we have the fact that the adult education and VET are in DG Employment, while higher education and schools are in DG EAC. But if you go and look concretely on what we are doing, if you look at the European education area, if you look at the skills agenda, if you look on many of the council recommendations related to education and training, be it you know, recommendation on key competences, new recommendations that we are working on now on online learning and many others. We work very closely together. And of course, you cannot, if you want to do something, be it at the European level or the national level, to the benefit of education and training, you cannot look at the education and training sectors in silos. I mean, Eleonora just mentioned the silos between higher education and businesses, but I would say that, you need to ensure, because let's take, for example, vocational education and training. If the school system, the initial school system, is not providing the young people with literacy, with numeracy, with basic skills, whatever we do in the vocational system, we usually get the learners when they're 15, 16 years of age. Whatever we do will be hampered by the fact that the basic education system is not providing people the skills they need. So it's an illusion to think that either in Europe or at the national level, we can look at sectors as if I'm just going to concentrate on higher education. The effectiveness and the quality of the skills that people acquire in higher education will depend very much on the skills they acquired throughout the education system before arriving in higher education. If you are not good in maths, if you cannot read a document, if you cannot communicate well when you reach higher education, then there's a very big problem. Higher education will not solve all those problems, all the deficiencies we have in arithmetic or whatever. So I think that the systems have to be thought in flexible pathways, in how do they connect with each other, how do we ensure that they all work with quality, that this is not a beauty contest to see whether higher education provides better education than better, whatever. It's not a beauty contest. We all have, what we have to do in the education system is ensure that we are providing people with opportunities to grow, to have fulfilling lives and quality jobs. That's at the end of the world what we want. If someone can be an excellent cook and be a horrible doctor, I think it's better that we provide him with the conditions to be an excellent cook and have a fulfilling career that he loves what he's doing, instead of telling them go to higher education because a lawyer is really what you need to do. I mean, what we've got to do is not interfere so much at that level, but ensure that we are providing the member states with and the education and training system with all the conditions they need in order to ensure that whatever people choose in life, whatever kind of education system or pathway they decide to do in life, they can expect quality education, be it from vet, higher education, whatever. And I think that we are doing. So answering your question, Anna Maria, I can say that with EAC, we are working very well. The Erasmus program is an example of it. We worked very closely with our colleagues in EAC in order to ensure that we made a very good proposal from the Commission back in 2018 when we proposed the new Erasmus program for the current programming period. In budget allocation, you know that, for example, VET has benefited quite significantly. We have this new initiative also in higher education, the European universities. We have this one on centers of vocational excellence. And I would say this is an example of very close cooperation that we have within the Commission services. I would say that, things on skills go beyond strictly DG Employment and DG EAC. We work very closely with our colleagues of DG Grow, for example, from other DGs dealing with climate issues to ensure that together with DG Connect on digital skills, for example. So the skills element, I can tell you, we have a skills hub within the Commission where we bring services from all over, all the services of the Commission that have a big role in skills. And I think that one of the big concerns of the new Commission has been to make sure that whenever we're talking about any kind of strategy, be it industrial strategy, the Green Deal, whatever, or digital skills, the digital single market, that whenever we're dealing with these big policy objectives, that they are always underpinned by a skills element. I mean, you cannot take the automotive sector. If you think of, what will be the automotive sector in a few years' time, in a decade, with driverless cars, with hybrid cars, electric cars, and so on. You cannot just think about the technological elements of producing a car. You cannot just think of, whether I need lithium batteries or whatever, or whether the production line should be here or there. Of course, all of that is important, but thinking of that without thinking of what will be the occupations of the future, what kind of skills will we need to have people helping these companies be, or the European companies being productive, being competitive worldwide, this is essential. So you cannot think about any kind of future, and I'm talking about the tourism sector, which we are all here today to discuss. You cannot think about the sustainable future tourism sector without thinking about skills, without thinking of, how are consumers behaving? How do they, today, how do they book their hotels? How do they book their flights? What kind of tourism are they looking for? Is it more green? Are they looking for, these kind of things? It requires that people that are working in the sector are attentive to it, develop the skills that can provide the companies with the opportunity to respond to these changing habits of people and organizations. And for that, of course, skills is critical. So I think that in a very long answer to your question, the Commission services are working together. I mean, as I say, DG GROW, responsible for the sector on tourism, is working very closely with us in EAC and employment to ensure that the proposals we put forward, that then the executive agency manages very well for us, that all of these things fit well with what is a global vision of a Europe based on quality jobs and with people with the skills that are relevant for the changes that are going on.
Eleonora, anything to say about this?
I believe in this synergetic approach. Then I don't want to go too far. I would stick at what EAC, we are doing in EAC. So the executive agency, our EAC is our mirror agency, and I really would like to stay on the project that has brought us together today, because I really believe that it's a great example of what could be done. We are creating examples that then should possibly, and this is our highest goal, have produce a domino effect. Here with this project, we have been exploring the tourism industry for more detailed perspective. So we analyze what are the soft skills that are necessary, that the people that work in the industry leaders really need to face reality. Because we know that it's probably inappropriate to talk about silos between higher education and the business industry, but you also know that often there is a lack of sense of reality of what people then really have to face when you have to enter the labor market. And I really think that the project is a great example of what it can be done. So the exploring the skills that are really needed, the soft skills that are really needed, creating new learning opportunities that anyway entails closer relationship with what the market and the businesses really needs. So to train new students who will have to enter the market, but also to retrain those students that at the moment are lacking those skills. And the project fits in a very difficult moment where the tourism industry is one of the industries that has been hit the most by this pandemic crisis, and they managed to address this issue in real time. So it's a micro perspective. So we are analyzing the issue from two different perspectives, macro and micro. But I really think that this project can offer an insight of what could be done to face the current challenges. And I believe that there is a synergetic approach.
Thank you very much, Eleonora. I think that there are 27 participants. Would anyone like to join in with a question for João and Eleonora? So like that, it's not only the three of us speaking. No? Ricardo, is it possible that the other participants join in?
I see that Laura connected. Maybe she has something.
Yeah, Laura, unmute yourself. Yes, yes. Well, very good. You have to, Ricardo, can you help Laura unmuting?
Okay, Laura is here.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Laura, go ahead. We are waiting for your question.
For my question?
Yes. Would you like to, do you have any question for this, for João or for Eleonora on this topic of we have been discussing?
No.
Oh. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anyone? It's okay. Don't worry, Laura. You just joined in. That's normal. Would anyone else? We still have a couple of minutes. Would anyone else like to make a question to João or to Eleonora? On my side, I would like to know how you are managing to transmit all these beautiful things you've just said, João, to the member states.
Yeah, well, you know, we have, I think, I'm hearing echo, maybe it's, okay. You know, I think the vet sector, I'm not talking so much about higher education because I'm not that familiar with it, but the vet sector, including the Polytechnic Institutes and the University of Applied Sciences, we are, I would say, much more than universities linked to the social partners. So, you know, for example, in our governance structures of everything we are doing on vet in Europe, we have the advisory committee for vocational training, where every single member state has 3 representatives, one from government, one from employers, another one from trade unions, where we discuss all these issues, where we reflect on it. And I mean, the ACVT, for example, has been, this advisory committee for vocational training was at the core of the council recommendation we adopted last year. They had an opinion of themselves in which they proposed what should be our priorities at the European level. So I would say that we have a very strong umbilical link. You know, it's part of our existence. You cannot think about vet without thinking how it interacts with what are the labor market needs, with companies, and also trade unions, because trade unions have a very important role to play, especially in everything that has to do with quality elements. You know, the trade unions quite often are there also to make sure that training is associated with collective bargaining, with career progression, with quality employment, and all these issues. So we have, I would say, a very close link. And of course, besides that, which is particular to vet, within what are the council bodies, you know, the Education Committee, the Erasmus Committee, and also we have a network of association of vet providers. There are 6 big associations of vet providers in Europe with whom we are in constant contact. And what I would say is, I mean, I've been working in the Commission for 31 years. I've worked in many services. I would say that in vet, what we are trying to do, and of course, you might consider this is just publicity of what we are doing, but honestly, I think we try to respond to what are our stakeholders' needs. You see, everything we do is usually a result of extensive discussion with the vet providers, with the social partners, and we try to, even if you look at the centers of vocational excellence, you know, the way we've conceived it is really, first of all, we started by looking all over Europe because, you know, the education systems in Europe are very different. I mean, sometimes even within the country, they are different, especially the countries that have regional autonomy like Italy and Spain. But throughout Europe, the education systems are very different. You've got countries that are, for example, dominant in the dual system, others where it's more school-based system. So what we try to start to do when we were coming up with the Centers of Vocational Excellence, first of all, look at the panorama in Europe. How does vocational excellence, when training is considered of excellent value, what are the main characteristics that are there, irrespective of the differences of the system in Bulgaria, in Portugal, in Denmark, or whatever? Is there a common element in the education system that makes it, are there kind of key success factors that make it excellent? So, you know, all the things we do, the point I wanted to make is that even what our proposals in Erasmus Plus, the calls we do, we try to do them not because there's some bright brain in Brussels that knows the secret of making the education system work well, because we don't. We're a small group. To tell you, you know, for example, in VET, we are 20 people trying to support 500 or almost 500 million Europeans in making sure that the training systems work well. So we are very few. We don't know things, but what we do have and I think that's the beauty of Europe, is that we have the capacity to bring people together. You know, being sitting in Brussels, it allows us to, for example, in Erasmus Plus, and I think Erasmus Plus is probably the best example of an EU program that relies on the sharing of experience, because all of our projects require partners from many countries in Europe. So bringing people together, bringing the good experiences in the Basque Country to be seen in Portugal or in Germany or in Finland or in Sweden. And I think that that's the role we can play. So not being an expert, I'm sure that any of you probably know much more about education systems than I do, even if I've been working on them for many years. But I think that, you know, sitting in Brussels gives us the possibility of understanding, listening to people throughout Europe, understanding what are their needs, and then come up either with policy proposals as well as funding mechanisms that allow them to address those needs. And I think that's basically what we are doing, and probably the vocational system is even more than any other system focused and dependent on the good quality relations between the education system and the society in general. So be it the economic developments as well as societal developments, the way attitudes people have, changing attitudes to life and life expectations, how they interact with the environment and digital skills, all these things. So I think that is very much at the center of this very fruitful dialogue between the education system and society in general.
Thank you, João. I have now a question from Maria João. Maria João, please join in. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all. Thank you very much. I took my duck face to make the question. I heard, and it was very interesting what we have been discussing, but I have a question, especially exactly to João and Eleonora, is that as we said here, and we are highlighting all the time, that cooperation is very much necessary, and only through cooperation can really be successful. We have been, during these 3 years, trying to do a project, and as Eleonora said, with big success. I am the evaluator, so this is why I am saying this. And this was really part of a process that takes much more time. And it is important that we are able to go on working together and to exchange, because only like that we can fulfill this wish of having a joint qualification, meaning that what we are doing is being recognized by the other universities that are cooperating with us, and that we finally really converge to this objective of having more mobility in Europe, or contribute to the mobility in Europe. So my final question is, how are the programs structured for the next period to allow us to apply, to go on working together?
Yeah. Eleonora, do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. So I think, Maria João, you are right. And I think that from our side, we are doing what is necessary. And the European Universities Initiative is very much going in that direction. So it wants to transform the way that we are looking at future skill needs, and making the universities work together in a more structural way, these kind of joint qualifications that we are talking about. And in that, we are doing something very similar with the Centers of Vocational Excellence. However, the problem is not only at the European level. We can do as much as we want. But for example, you know, vet schools throughout Europe need much more autonomy. Quite often it is almost impossible for vet schools to change their curricula, because the curricula is set up at the national level, and the margin for the schools to change the curricula, to adapt it to what are, you know, global changing needs, or even regional needs, in some cases is very difficult. Even in higher education, although higher education institutions have a lot of autonomy, but it is quite difficult to do changes just because you are working on an Erasmus project with another university in other countries. It does not necessarily mean that, okay, if you get a good example from Germany, the next day you can change what you are doing in Portugal. It doesn't work that way. It's much more difficult. So I think that, you know, we can do as much as we want at the European level, and I think we are doing. The European European Universities Initiative and what we are doing at COVES is very much going in that direction, but that will not be enough. The national authorities, and it's up to you, I would say, we are doing what we can in this forum that I mentioned with the member states, the context of the member states, but it's also very much up to you at the national level to engage with your national stakeholders and make them understand that the education system has to be much more dynamic than it was in the past, that, you know, having very strict ways of updating curricula, very strict and formal means of adapting the education system to what are the labor market needs, that it cannot work that way. And I think that a lot of the bottlenecks are not so much about funding, because I see a very big appetite for universities at centers all over Europe to work together to, you know, think of future skill needs and adapt it to those needs. I see a lot of appetite for that, and there is a lot of funding for it, but there are also national bottlenecks on giving much more autonomy to maybe European universities don't need that much, but schools, vocational schools need that. The teachers have tremendous difficulty. If they see that there's some regional need that is not catered for in the national curricula, if they want to adapt it somehow, it's extremely difficult for them to do it. And that needs a big change at the national level. It's a change to adapt to the new reality. Maybe this was okay 20 years ago to ensure a certain level of uniformity and quality, but you know, change is happening so fast that if we maintain this kind of mental blockage, we will not be able to keep up with the change going outside.
Yes, thank you very much, João. Leonora, would you like to add something to what João just said?
You are always always very much to the point. It's always difficult to adapt further information. Now, what obviously I maintain my perspective of project officer at EAKEA, and to sustain projects there are many opportunities. So I invite you to go through the new program guide, because often you can find a solution that allows you to keep your projects alive and build up on the project that you have created, realized, and concluded. Obviously, from our perspective, the Knowledge Alliances, we really, for us, is a strong asset when projects are able to live beyond the project, to ensure that the projects transform in a process. So this is the ultimate goal, and through the program guide, I'm sure that there are many opportunities that are waiting for you and suitable for you.
Thank you very much, Eleonora. Thank you very much, João. I think we have now reached the timing. I don't know if there is any more questions. Maria João, would you like to say anything else? No? Anyone else? I think we are now 2 minutes past time.
No, I just wanted to thank.
Thank you, Maria João. So if no one else would like, I will still have a couple of questions, but I don't think we don't have time. So I think it's about time to close our session. Thank you very much again, João. Thank you very much, Eleonora, and to everybody that was assisting online and behind the screens. I wish the biggest success for the project, and hope to see you one of these days. Thank you very much. Have a remaining nice day, and the rest of the conference as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ana Maria. Thank you, Eleonora. Thank you, João.